Hey, welcome everybody to The Other Side of Addiction. I am Al Richards, and I am here, as I always say every week, with my lovely co-host, Lori Warburton, the lady in red first responder. I always got to get that out to make sure people know about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice to be here. We're really excited for this week. So,
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to be on the show and meet new people. So, thank you so much for driving here from St. George. That's really awesome.
We have a special guest that came on today, and as Lori mentioned, her and her friend Jenny came all the way up from St. George. I wish we could have went down to St. George because, I would have loved to have been playing golf down there today. But anyway, Malory, our guest, Malory Ruesch. Right? I said it right?
You said it right. I was waiting.
And thanks for the heads up on it, which we won't talk about on the show. But anyway, so Malory is an author, speaker, and a survivor. Now that I know because I have been following her a little bit since her and I met. Malory travels around to the high schools and speaks at high schools. She loves to talk about identifying trauma and understanding healing strategies, which we were talking before the show. All of us can heal in one way or another because we've all had tragedies or something bad happen in our life. And one thing that I'm really looking forward to, so she has been working on a book and it's soon to be out, right?
Soon to be, yes.
And it's called The Way in 90 Days. Before we get into where you grew up and things like that, just tell us just a little tidbit about the book, and then at the end of the show I want to talk about this book a lot more.
So with The Way in 90 Days, I came up with the name because the first 90 days of any kind of recovery or healing program is the most important. That's what Chuck, my inspiration for doing this book, used to call the Jenga tower. That was your foundation, right? For what you were going to do from that point on for the rest of your life. And so it is a healing and it is a healing project for anyone that has been impacted or affected by addiction. So it's not just a book for the addict themselves, but it is for family members and people in the family that have been affected to a point where they don't understand how to help without hurting their peace and their life and what they're doing. So it's going to be great.
Love it. Now,
Awesome.
I read the one chapter that you sent me. Loved it. I sent it to Lori. I don't know. She's busy, so I don't know if you had a chance to read some of it.
That.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is the understanding of what the book was going to be was an autobiography, which at first I thought that would be a great idea, but obviously in addiction there's moments where you're messed up. And you can't recall certain details. And for me, being, wanting to be as honest as I can in this process, I didn't want to put a book out there with details that may be incorrect or, false in any way. So as far as creating a 90-day healing program for the addict themselves and the family members, I wanted to implement flashbacks, part of an autobiography, moments of my addiction that were intense, that people could relate to, and really radiated the lesson that I was trying to teach within that week of the 90-day program.
Cool. Well, let's definitely get into the book a little bit more at the end of the show. But tell us a little bit about yourself to let the audience know, where did you grow up? I mean, I know you had some dreams as a little girl because I read some of that in that chapter. And then kind of like where life ended up taking you. I mean, we've all gone through tragedies throughout our life, and some of us are able to take things that's happened to us and somehow we're able to put it in the back of our brain and just keep going on with life. There's others too that have a hard time doing that and fall into different types of patterns. And of course, I think we all fall into certain patterns that it ends up affecting all of us in one way or another.
Absolutely.
But share a little bit about you.
So my name is Malory. I'm 27 years old. I grew up, actually, I was born in Sandy and raised in Murray. And my family all kind of migrated down to St. George. So most of us all live down there now. And my upbringing, I'm the youngest of 5 girls. The older 3 are on my dad's side, and I've never met them. My closest sister is 10 years older than me, and she had a different father. So growing up in St. George, my sister would bounce between my mom and me and her dad, who lived up here in Salt Lake. And so often it felt like I was an only child. You know, knowing that I was the youngest of 5 girls, I was definitely grown up, or I was in a home alone most of the time. So my mom was an alcoholic, and that caused a lot of instability. It caused a lot of moving. It caused a lot of questions, you know, going through school of what was causing this. And a lot of the time, as a young child, I questioned me being the cause. And I think that's a thought that goes through a lot of children's minds of parents who are addicts is, you know, why are you doing this? What did I do wrong? How can I help you? How can I cure it? How can I control it? And that's something that I talk about too in my book, obviously, of things that we can address. But it wasn't until I did great in school. There was no red flags. There was no signs that I was going to be going into addiction. I was on the yearbook committee. I was in student council. I was on the honor society. I was scheduled to graduate high school 2 years early. Wow. I mean, I was on the right track. And it wasn't until I ended up getting into college classes. So most of the time in my high school time, I'd spend at the college. And a lot of the people I was spending time with were a lot older than me. So at the end of the day, when I was finished with my college classes, I would go to the high school and then, you know, be a high school student again. So in the midst of being in college, I knew deep down within myself that there was a need that was not fulfilled at home. And that was the need, that was the feeling of being needed. That was the feeling of being wanted and being a part of. And so when I was at college with these people and they were going to all these parties and I just wanted to be a part of, you know, I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to be accepted. Like, I just wanted to be loved. And however I had to do that, I was willing to do. And I got an invite one night to a party. And of course I went. I was like, absolutely. I walk into the party and the first thing that someone tries to hand me is a red Solo cup full of beer. And I felt that if I wasn't going to accept that, they were going to think I was weird, that I wasn't going to fit in. And so,
how old were you at that time?
So I was 16 when the partying really started to affect my life.
Is that when you had your first alcoholic beverage, or?
Yeah. That was the very first time that I had ever tried alcohol. And it went from 1 cup to 2 to 3 very quickly. And that was the party that was going to be the very beginning of my journey, a very long, long road for me. So at one of those parties, there was a guy that I gained a friendship with and gained interest in. And he was kind of, you know, the life of the party. Everyone loved him, and he was drinking a ton, and weed was getting passed around at parties, and that man and I ended up getting into a relationship. So he was 6.5 years older than me. And in my mind at that point, I grew up with no father. And I know that for me, that was one of the major causes that started my road of addiction. And I actually read a pretty interesting statistic a little while back that 92% of children without a healthy father in their life or a part of their life will face addiction issues in one way or another.
92%?
92%.
Holy cow.
So, and I mean, growing up, you know, through school, I would see parents, moms and dads all the time. Like for me, I never saw the kids that didn't have the dad. It seemed like everyone had one except for me. So that, for a long time, not only was I questioning why my mom was going through her alcoholism, but I was struggling, wondering why I wasn't good enough for my father to ever want me or come back. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, double whammy. Anyway, so by getting involved in this relationship with this man, you know, I finally was feeling those feelings, feeling loved, feeling wanted, feeling accepted. And after a few months went by, the drinking just got worse. I started to smoke weed. I started getting messed up. You know, instead of it being once in a while, it became every other weekend. Every other weekend became every weekend. And finally, one night we were at a party, and my head was pounding. I had drank a ton of beer, and I'm only 4'11", so my blood to alcohol is way terrible. So I was complaining about my headache, and I was sitting there, and I was extremely drunk and messed up, crossfaded, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a little blue pill. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but I asked him what it was, and he said, just take it, it'll make you feel better. Again, I was put in one of those situations where I felt that if I denied it, then I could possibly lose this loving relationship. And I trusted him.
Yeah.
I trusted him. And so I took the little blue pill, and that was the beginning of my oxycodone addiction.
Wow. So that little blue pill was oxy?
It is an oxycodone. Yeah, 30 milligram oxycodone.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That is quite a bit for your little self.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah.
My sister's the same height as you, so
Yep.
I can relate to that for sure. I have a question about your relationship, and you mentioned not having a father figure and all of that. Did he, because he was older, you know what I mean, did that kind of fulfill that within yourself, you know, like more like a dominant type of a figure? You felt like he was
like
more,
a daddy issues
yeah,
situation.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
just kind
absolutely.
of like
That's
he
a good
knew
question.
more, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, because what is a father supposed to be to a child? They're supposed to be a protector.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be someone who supports you and takes care of you. And that's exactly what older men do. And that's why girls without fathers tend to go that way. I mean, as much as I, you know, don't want to say that necessarily, but that's the truth and that's the reality of the situation. And so I just wanted to be, you know, taken care of the way I should have been from a father.
Yeah.
So he kind of projected that.
Well, especially with the father-daughter relationship, because I know when I had my first daughter, I mean, we were like that. You know,
Right.
second daughter, not so much, because my ex-wife and I were going through a divorce at the time. But yeah, most guys that I know that have daughters, their relationship is extremely close, and it's because that's what we want to do, is we want to protect our daughters and that. So that was a good question, Lori. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good question.
I could very much relate because I didn't have a relationship with my real father. You know, I was molested at a young age, and it carried on for a little bit. But because I wasn't able to tell, he told me not to tell, or my mother would leave and no one would believe me anyway. I just shoved it in the back of my mind, and I went on with my life, like, you know, you were talking about earlier. And the funny thing about that is you don't realize once you've made that choice and you're that young and you just shove it so far back that every choice you make into your future affects all of that. But you know, you're like me, like a strong person. You just kind of pick yourself up and go on. I was straight A's in school, all of that just the same as you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And even though there wasn't a solid background, so I can really relate to what you're saying. But I think it's important to let the audience know, you know, why those choices are made. Because I didn't figure that out till later, you know, in life for myself.
And my mom, you know, I do want to mention this. My mom, you know, she worked in the medical field. She worked 40 hours. She was a hardworking mom. I was in a daycare a lot of my childhood due to her working hours. And she did the best she could with what she had. And that is something that I articulate in my book so much. And one of the biggest problems that I see in the world today is that we judge people based off their decisions. But what people don't realize, what we all don't realize at times, is that everyone's doing the best they can with what they have and what they know how to do with it. You know, our parents give us tools to be able to live life the best that we can. But when our parents aren't given those tools and their parents didn't give our parents those tools, how do we expect to get those tools? You know, and so for me, it was like my mom did the best she could with what she had, but there was a lot of the time where I was raising myself and I got that survivor mindset, because if my mom was sick or my mom was hungover or she couldn't wake up to get me to school, like I was walking, you know, and I think that just very early on created this survivor mindset that I am my own boss and I will take care of myself and I can do it by myself, which created a really big defiance later on in the story.
So when you first took that first pill, I mean, I know most people, they don't wake up and say, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be an addict today and I'm going to be the best damn addict that possibly is. I'm going to F everything up.
Absolutely.
You know? You had no clue that's the road where, I mean, even after taking that first drink, right? You had no clue that it was going to take you down the road that it took you.
No, and the thing with the pill was that I was using the alcohol, I mean, subconsciously at the time, I didn't know this at the time, you know, to drown the feelings and to be able to relax. My excuse that I often told myself was, you know what, like, you're a kid, you deserve to have fun, you deserve to mess up, you deserve to make mistakes, like, and you're allowed to do that. Because growing up, like, I wasn't allowed to do that in my mind. Like, I had to be strong all the time. And I had to get straight A's, because for me, my grades defined who I was and my worth, because that's the only way I knew how to define my worth. I didn't know what my worth was with my situation. And the second I took that pill, I knew that one pill did so much of the numbing with way less cups. So instead of having to drink a 30 case, one pill, and you had your 30 case. Exactly. I didn't have to feel any of the things that I'd have to keep drinking to drown.
Wow. And we have found that out a lot, right? With a lot of our guests and your past history and what I've dealt with being on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really didn't get into drugs much at all, but what you said about feelings, I never really drank to have fun. I noticed that it took away the hurt, and it took away either something like being afraid, you know, getting in front of people and singing like I would, speaking in front of people like I always loved to do, you know, the courage kind of just, and then kind of just, I remember as a young girl, I would always have to take this green medicine because I was literally just nervous and scared to go to school and never really knew why till much later in life, you know what I mean? But yeah, you do that to drown that out. I never did it because, oh, this is fun. In fact, I would always feel bad. I always felt guilty if I ever, you know, had to drink alcohol or anything like that. So
that is so interesting that you say that, because although it's so similar, I was the complete opposite personality. Like, I believed I was doing it to have fun. I was outgoing. I was an extrovert. I just wanted to I had FOMO, man, fear of missing out. Literally. It did not matter what it was. I was like, you're going to do that? We're all doing it? Perfect. We're all going together, you know. But for me, it was, Mal, it's okay to relax. It's okay to be a kid. You are doing this for fun. So for me, it was like the only way that I could cut off my perfectionism. I could cut off my judgment of myself, and I could just relax.
I like how you said the perfectionism too, because I'm the same way in that respect, and I really had to grow up quickly because of my circumstances. And so when I got married, I was very young. I was 17 years old. So there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, going out and doing all these things and dating and blah, blah, blah. It was like I went
straight to it.
Straight to that life, you know. And So everybody's a little different, but kind of same emotions.
Absolutely.
You know?
And it all ties in
It
together.
relates. So.
Yeah, it blows me away of how many people that have come up to me and has spoke to me about their addictions. It's almost like all the stories are the same, but they're not.
I actually have this phrase out in my book that says, if you just change the names, people, places, and things, it's all the same.
Yeah, I mean,
Change
it
the
really
names
is.
and we all have the same story.
Yeah. And I like what you said, judging people, and I think we've talked about this a couple times on the show, but one thing that I have learned during my wife's addiction, it has really taught me a lot about judgment, because some of these people that I've met at AA meetings, because I've gone to a ton of AA meetings with her just to be there for support, you first look at them and that mind starts going, oh yeah, no wonder they were an alcoholic, but then as you hear their story and you're going, holy shit, I couldn't imagine going through that in my life,
Absolutely.
And so it's really taught me, just because you see somebody and they look different, or they have nose rings or piercings or tattoos all over them. My mom even said once, people that have tattoos have lived a hard life. And I'm like, where the hell did you come up with that? I mean, I got friends that got tattoos all over them, and they're phenomenal people, But it's that judgment. And I also like what you said, too, about our parents have done the best that they could. I was just actually talking to a friend, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, but he was sharing with me about all the mistakes he made as a parent, things that he's messed up on, and how his son is screwed up in that. And I'm like, let me tell you something, brother. We didn't go to school to learn how to be parents. There's no class you take. Our parents did the best what they could because of what they were taught through their parents. No one says everything we do is perfect, and
Right.
probably the majority of it isn't. We just do the best that we can. I mean, I taught my girls as growing up, I'm like, your mom and I, we're teaching you the best that we know how. You take what you feel like you can use,
And you find your own way.
and you find your own way, or get rid of the stuff that you disagree with, because you're your own person now. But all we've done is done our best. And my mom beats herself up all the time because, I mean, I'm the oldest. There's my brother who's 7 years younger than me, my sister who's 14 years younger than me. I just found out 3 years ago, I was actually adopted. My mom's my real mom. So the guy that I thought was my dad all my life was not my real dad,
Wow.
which kind of explains some things of why I was treated the way that I was treated. Now, where was I going with this? But yeah, and Brad's over there. I don't know.
Can I do just want to say,
Yes,
I
please.
just want to
Yeah,
tag off something you said.
Save me.
I literally just got so teary-eyed and emotional because you said something. You just said, we're teaching you the best way that we know how, but take what you can use and find your own way.
Yeah.
And that is exactly why I named my book The Way in 90 Days, because it's so much about people finding their own way, like the beauty in their own recovery. Something I get asked about a lot is, NA and AA meetings. That is not something that I personally, for my own recovery, have chose to continue doing for my own reasons. And one of those reasons is because oftentimes when I did the first 3 years, so the first 3 years of my recovery, but I would walk in and people were judgmental, and it was like, oh, I'm better than you, I have more time than you, or you're not doing it right, or this and that. And it was just constant like put downs. And I just felt like the healing aspect had become more of a competition, and I was just ready to find my own way. So I did that exactly with the NA meetings. Is I got to take what I could use from that program that worked for me and found my own way, which is exactly what this book is it's the 90-day way that I did my own recovery and still do my own recovery. So I think that was great that you said that.
Thank you. Yeah, and even that chapter that you sent, it says that at the bottom of the chapter, you even said it may not work for everyone, and that's okay, but
Right.
it worked for me. Because Al-Anon was that way. People are like, oh, you need to go to Al-Anon. You go to Al-Anon. All right, so I go to Al-Anon. I went to 2 or 3 meetings, and I remember the last one I walked out, and I told my wife, I ain't showing my face here again. And she's like, why? It's not helping. It's like, holy shit, I come out of here feeling worse than I did when I walked in. Now, Al-Anon works for a lot of people. I'm not knocking Al-Anon by all means, because I have an aunt that goes to Al-Anon, and she loves Al-Anon. But it wasn't for me.
Yep. And I will say too is, you know, I'm not dissing the NA or AA community. I'm friends with almost all of them, and I'm very close with a lot of them. I just chose to do a different way for my recovery.
Yeah, and I would think there's a different way for a lot of people, right, Lori? I mean,
For everyone.
There is. I was
this,
just
yeah.
thinking it's kind of like going to church in a way.
Absolutely.
You pick,
Well put.
who your higher power, whatever. You go there, you take what you can and what's meant for you and what message is meant for you because you hear that strongly, and then you kind of leave the rest, and then you build upon that as you go.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you used that because, yeah.
Yeah, because that's everybody gets a different message walking away from any meeting, any type of healing process you go through, or listening to speakers even, someone else is going to say, oh, that really touched my heart. Like, we'll get a little teary-eyed or emotional because we felt that, so.
So it's I mean, really it's all about you. I mean, not to be selfish, but it's really all about you. I remember when my grandma was starting to pass away, I was like one of the only grandkids that didn't go to church, and she's like, please go to church before I die. I'd just like to know. And so I started going because I wanted her to know so she could feel some comfort. But I told her, I says, look, this is the reason why I don't like going to church. I don't like a lot of the people that are there. And she told me, she goes, when your grandpa and I started going, we didn't go for the people. We went for us.
Exactly.
And I went, huh.
I think one thing
Lady
we need
has
to
a lot of smarts.
Yep.
yeah, and we need to remember that it's okay to be selfish for ourselves sometimes, to use
Yes.
self-care, because as soon as you let self-care go out the window, that's when everything else starts going down. So
Okay. Well, before we move on, did you have something you want to share? I don't want you to lose it. So if you need to share something,
Nope.
go for it.
I was just going to start back where we were at.
Oh, okay. Gosh, you got a better memory because I just lost my memory just talking about something. Hey, guys, we're going to take a short break. We will be right back. Stay tuned because Mallory's got some great things to share. We're definitely going to get to her book. But we also want to kind of get down a dark place of where this addiction took her, if that's okay with you.
To the other side.
To the other side. Love it, love it. So want to end it right before the commercial break. Remember, love can't always save us, but it can be the reason why we fight.
How do you start your morning? Start it with a cup of High Point coffee. Because no matter where you go or what you do, it's always better with coffee. High Point Coffee. What's your high point? Located on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood Road in West Jordan. And a special thanks goes out to our partners in Oxford, Mississippi.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunken flatwork for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net Or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey, welcome back to the other side of addiction, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsor, High Point Coffee in West Jordan on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood. And I know I've shared this every single time, and I'll probably continue to share it. But walking in there, man, once those girls in there get to know who you are and know what you drink, they'll have it ready by the time you even walk up to the counter.
Like, oh.
Oh my gosh, I tell you what, everyone there at High Point Coffee is just phenomenal. And I think I shared last week too that they've got some new guests or new people or customers. That's the word I'm looking for, new customers, and they are truly great.
Awesome.
So we were getting into some pretty heavy stuff before our break. You had something that you wanted to continue to share. Do you remember what that was?
I was just going to start off where we were ending with the oxycodone.
Okay, let's do
Okay.
it. Yeah, let's do it. I like it.
Okay, so once I discovered that the ability to numb myself was easier with the oxycodone, the man that I was dating was one of 3 boys. And both of his other brothers had addictions as well with oxycodone and heroin. At the time, his brother was getting multiple prescriptions. And I remember one day after, I mean, we were hooked at this point. We were taking, this was 20 pills a day.
Oh my goodness.
Holy cow.
I
Of the
mean-
same milligram?
Oh, yeah,
The
30 milligrams.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was bad. And I don't know if you guys know much about oxycodone, but it's a downer. And obviously it creates a physical dependency. And so I was at the point where if I didn't find something within 12 hours, I was going to go into the physical withdrawal. And at that point is when you start to panic. And so we had just ran out. And my boyfriend goes, Mal, it's going to be okay. And I started, breathing heavy. And I was like, we got to find something. And he goes, it's okay. Like, I'll take care of you. We got this. So he's like, I'll be right back. He leaves me in the room, and he walks out of the room, and he walks into his brother's room, and he shuts the door just enough to where it's slightly opened. And I walk out there, and I put my ear to the door, and he goes, I need you to help me get something. Like, we're out. We're going to hit withdrawal. And his brother goes, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you could get your own prescriptions. And at the time in Vegas, there was a lot of this going on of doctors getting shut down for all these false prescriptions. And so my boyfriend at the time told his brother, there's something I need you to do for me. And he goes, what? And I'm still just listening in by the door. And he goes, I need you to hurt me and give me the ability to get the prescription. So they walk out of the living room, and he goes, okay, I know what we can do. So my boyfriend ends up putting his chest on the couch and leaning his legs off of the couch. So his chest was on the couch, and then his feet were just straight. And his brother jumped on his back and ended up breaking multiple parts in his spine.
Oh, jeez.
So he ended up obviously rushing to go get help for this emergency care. The first thing that they offer him is obviously going to be all the things that he's hoping to get. And that gave him the medical paperwork to later on be able to fulfill 5 300 pill prescriptions a month.
Holy cow.
5 300 prescriptions a month. From that point, obviously, in addiction, we were like, okay, we'll sell some of them, we'll make good money, but we all know that's not how it goes when you're an addict.
Yeah.
You ended up using a lot of them, and we just spiraled at that point. It just kept getting worse, and we would just sit for days in our room and do nothing. Like, it felt like we were doing something, but we would just sit there and use and use and use, and just like before, the abundance ran out. And we got calls on the day that he was supposed to go fill the prescriptions from doctors saying that they were no longer available, that they were no longer going to be allowing him to get that prescription, or their office was getting shut down. So again, that panic came back because I knew now I was on a time crunch. And for those of you who don't know about physical withdrawal, it is hell. It is the reason why so many heroin addicts die, is because to go through the physical withdrawal that it takes to get clean is worse than death. Wow. To a lot of us. Your legs shake. You are completely unable to sleep. There were nights where I would, fully clothed, sit and lay in the shower curled up in a ball and just let warm water run over me, and I would just sit there and I would just cry and I would cry and I'd cry, and it's a pain that's completely indescribable. So for those who didn't know that. His brother ended up one night, being on this time crunch, there was no one in town that had anything at the time. And so my boyfriend's brother goes, listen, there's a person in Vegas that I know can help you get better before your withdrawal starts kicking in. Here's his name. Here's the address. It's like 2 a.m. when he finally finds something. And so we get in the car. We start driving to Vegas. And I could just feel the withdrawal start to creep in. And that pain just started to make me shudder, and I was getting chills, and I finally had to get out of the passenger seat, crawl to the back of the car, and lay down on the floor, and all I remember is begging him, please just drive faster, please drive faster. So we finally get to Vegas, and we pull up on a dark alleyway, and he pulls the car on the side of the road. He gets out for what seemed like forever and does a drug deal. Ends up getting in the car, and obviously we just wanted to get better, so we weren't going to wait till we got home to use. So we ended up getting out of the alleyway, out of where we felt, we were out of the danger zone, pulled on the side of the road, and he opened his hand, and it was a ball of foil. And in my mind at first, I was like, okay, they just wrapped it in foil, right? So he ends up unwrapping it, and there was a little balloon, like literally a balloon. And I was like, what's that? And so then he cuts open the balloon, and it looked like someone had gone onto the road, onto the asphalt on a hot day when the asphalt was really hot and wet, and grabbed a piece, balled it up, and stuck it in there. It was stinky. It was black. And I had an idea. I mean, you always hear in movies, right, and about heroin addicts or this drug or that drug, but you never think you're actually going to be facing the situation of seeing it or being involved with it. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we knew we had no choice. It was, we either take this and get better, or we withdrawal, trying to find what we were comfortable with. And I know everyone who's familiar with addiction knows that it doesn't matter what it is. You're going to do it to get better.
Yeah.
So we both knew it was heroin. We ended up using and getting better at that point, and heading home. And that began an even deeper spiral of a newfound heroin addiction for me.
Wow. So it went from beer to oxy.
No, beer to weed.
Oh, beer to weed.
Weed
then
to oxycodone,
Yep,
yep.
and then to heroin.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we're not done.
Were you?
We're just getting started
just
out.
getting
Can I
started,
ask? Did you just ingest that, or did you shoot it? Like how? Because there's so many different ways and forms of doing that. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Because
No, so I know I never know, depending on the podcast I'm at, some don't want me to go into those details. So, yeah, if you ever want me to clarify on something like that, please tell me. So, for us, what we did with the oxycodone was we just placed it on a piece of foil and used a straw and lit it with a lighter underneath, which caused the smoke. And it's the same exact way with heroin, is how we were doing it
just
at the time.
inhaling it. Is
Oh,
that
I didn't know that you could do that you could inhale it.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. Wow.
Yep, that was just the easiest way to do it, especially even when you were driving back from Vegas, just to have a piece of foil. But once we ended up getting home, heroin is cheaper, obviously a lot dirtier than oxycodone, but it's a lot cheaper. So we were able to get it easier too. So that was where my life really started to get bad. I remember after a couple months of that, I'm naturally a very bubbly, energetic person. I love people. I'm outgoing. Yeah. And so this downer was just taking my personality. It was draining me completely. I mean, I had no spunk. I had no sparkle. I had no happiness. And it just created this negative mindset. And I remember one night, I finally just hated that feeling. And I was sitting in my room with my boyfriend, and we had a couple other drug friends over at the time, and we had plenty of heroin. And I honestly don't know what happened to me at this point, because this doesn't happen in most situations and in most stories, but something in me that night decided I was done, and I didn't want to use anymore. And I ended up not using, and my 12 hours was about to run out, and I was about to hit that withdrawal. And my boyfriend goes, "Here, just take a hit, like you're about to withdraw." And I was like, "No, like I don't want to." And for the next 3.5 days, I went through withdrawal on my own choosing. While my boyfriend right there sat in front of me and smoked and felt great and got high, he didn't care. He didn't care about me at all. And it wasn't until Mother's Day of 2013 that I woke up one morning at 6 a.m. and I had just completed my 3 days of withdrawal. And it was a different day, Al. I opened the window and the air smelled sweeter. The sun was coming through and felt warmer. And I finally felt free for the first time in my life.
Tissue.
And it was Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day. And I called my mom because we hadn't been talking for a long time, obviously, because of the chaos that I was causing, and she was sober. And so I called my mom and I go, "Mom, I love you and happy Mother's Day, and can me and you and Amber go to breakfast? And I want to come home. I'm clean." And she's like, "Yeah." So we ended up going to Village Inn. And we laughed, we cried. Our family was finally all doing good at one time. And I told my mom I want to move home. And she goes, "Okay, well, me and the girls, for Mother's Day, her siblings, are all going to get a pedicure. And if you and Amber want to go back to your house, gather your things, I'll help you move back home." And she gave me the best hug that I've ever received from that point till that point. And so I start driving back to the house, and I am just full of happiness. I am just finally free. I'm like, life's about to start. Finally, I get to our house, and the second I pull in the driveway, 10 cars surround me, St. George SWAT. And in that moment, everything around me slowed down because I realized just because I had made the choice to stop using doesn't mean I've paid the price for my choices. And instantly, SWAT all had guns on me. They had been following us for the last 3 months, seeing the transfers of big amounts of drugs back and forth. My car door got torn open. They grabbed me by the neck, threw me to the floor, knees were on my back. I was arrested, thrown up against the tree, and I just started bawling. And while my mom was at her pedicure appointment, all of a sudden, guess what happened to be on the TV?
Oh, wow.
Her daughter's face comes across with the announcement of my arrest. And they ended up shipping me to jail. I got my first paraphernalia charge. And I get to jail. I ended up being in there for about a week, but when I got there, I called my mom and I called all the bail bondsmen, and I go, Mom, listen, I got clean. Like, you know this. I'm gonna do better. Come bail me out. I'm ready to come home. She's like, okay, like, I'll bail you out as long as you keep your promise and under the circumstance of you coming back home. And I said, absolutely. Like, that's easy. I already made that decision. Like, get me out of here. So she ended up coming and bailing me out, and we went to my boyfriend's house to finish getting all my things. My mom started talking to my boyfriend's dad at the time about what was going on. I just went inside. I opened the door to our bedroom. And what I've learned with addiction is that it's a game of odds. And the odds are always against you. Always, no matter the situation. When I opened that door to the room, there was a little blue container sitting in the middle of the floor, and I knew exactly what that little blue container was. And I stood there for a while in disbelief, thinking, how in the hell does St. George SWAT raid your home to collect all of the evidence to use against you and leave a gram of heroin sitting in the middle of the floor? And at first, I kind of started questioning, is this a trap? Like, are they testing me? Yeah. You know, that parent, I'm still in that addictive mindset. I'm like, they're trying to get me again. Like, no. Obviously, I fell for it. I ended up packing my stuff. And my first thought is, you know what, I'll just sell it to get back on my feet. I'm going to need money. I have no job. So I throw it in my bag. As I was gathering blankets off my bed, a full pill bottle of meth fell out of the blanket.
Oh, more temptation.
Oh my gosh.
I think somebody else was trying to tempt you that day.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So obviously I didn't have a lot of time. My mom goes, Mallory, are you coming? I was like, okay. So I threw it all in my bag and we left and we drove home. I get home and those thoughts started creeping back in of, you know, I can just do it once. And I ended up going down to the basement into our garage, and I ended up using again. And that was the new beginning of an even worse spiral that created me becoming an intravenous user.
Wow. It amazes me how each time, so like my wife has attempted sobriety many times, and she did it for 13 months. And I remember the first time I caught her taking her drink after 13 months. And I remember getting upset with her, going, it was just like a vampire tasting its first taste of blood, basically. That's when her life completely, that's when she got her first DUI, then reckless driving,
Yep.
driving under the
And every time you go back out, it just gets worse.
Yeah, it just kept spiraling. It's like, you know, the snowball starts out the size of a marble, and before you know it, it's so big you can't even move it anymore.
Absolutely. Well, and, you know, obviously with the mindset of I'm going to sell all this stuff, or I'm going to sell what I have, make the money, I ended up making new connections. And that just made it even harder to get back out of. And when I finally realized once again, I mean, I was physically dependent again. And I realized I ended up doing all of it, basically, and including the meth. And I realized that my true drug of choice was what, in my mind at the time, brought out my true personality. So the upper, it was the, you feel on top of the world, you feel beautiful, that confidence. And that's when I knew that was going to be the one to take me down. So it wasn't 3 months from May till August of 2018. I was arrested on 15 felonies, 13 misdemeanors of burglary, theft, paraphernalia, possession, distribution. And I was facing many, many years in prison at the age of 19 years old.
Holy cow. I couldn't imagine that. I mean, that's so much of the time that you were battling with that. I mean, that's your time of having fun and enjoying life, and, you know, before going into an adulthood and really having to take on these responsibilities. And I couldn't imagine at the age of 19 thinking that I was going to go to prison. That had to have scared the hell out of you.
Oh yeah, it terrified me. And you know, there's, in like the first chapter that you read, all that just kept running through my head was all the things in life I was never going to get to experience. You know, I didn't think I'd ever be able to get to be a mom. I would never get to find a great relationship. I had all the tools in the world, Al, to be something. And I chose, of all things, to be an intravenous meth user and heroin addict. And I realize now that it was because I had never dealt with something, a cause in me that was still hurting. It was pulling me toward those drugs because I didn't want to feel that.
Yeah.
And that was the feeling of being abandoned and wondering why I was never good enough for my own creator to love me and want me and guide me and protect me. And
don't you feel like it's scary looking back? So I did the same thing, you know, is when you don't deal with the first issue.
Exactly.
That is the root of the cause, the very seed,
Yep.
right? And you just keep going on until you're able to become accountable and hurt enough to go back and figure all that out.
Yep.
That's when the real healing begins.
Absolutely. And just with, like you were saying, with addiction, as far as that snowball, it's the same thing. If that cause is not dealt with early on and fully healed,
Yeah.
it's gonna continue to build and get worse and hurt more, and you can't just keep shoving it down. And that's what's happening. People are taking their causes and their pains of what's hurting them, and they don't want to deal with it, and they're shoving it down and hoping that it gets better, and all it's doing is keeping them sick.
Yeah. Isn't it weird that us as human beings, we're there to do whatever we can to help somebody? You know, so if I called Lori and I'm saying, hey, I'm struggling or whatever, Lori would do everything she could to help calm me, make me feel good, make me believe in myself. But when it comes to us, our own beliefs in ourselves, why is it that we have such a hell of a hard time learning to love our own selves? We're good at loving other human beings and being there, but why can't we not be here for ourselves? Because we really need to be, right?
Absolutely. No, I was actually, one of the chapters in my book is to the child of an addict. And it's been one of the most emotional chapters that I've written because I've had to recall a lot that I went through as a child and the feelings that I was feeling. And the chapter is basically everything I would tell if I was in front of a child who suffered with parents of an addict. And the research I was doing was saying that those feelings growing up, when we're older, those feelings of, you know, being inadequate or not being enough, or, you know, wanting older men's relationships or older women relationships, or, you know, seeking out narcissistic situations, those are all started at the age of being a child. And the situations that we're in where our parents weren't able to give us those tools to teach us, you are worthy, you are loved, you are worth it, you are strong. And so every morning and every night when my girls wake up, right when we're eating breakfast, I say, repeat after me, I am strong. And they both go, I am strong. And I go, I am brave. And they both go, I am brave. And my little girls, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And they're finally to the point where they both just love it and they know. And right before we're going to go to bed, she goes, Mom, we did our sayings. Gosh, I'm so emotional, sorry.
No, don't worry about it.
The other night, I had been crying because I was writing this chapter. And it's really hard to write with a 2 and a 4-year-old.
Oh, yeah,
So
I can
any chance I get, I'm like, But I kind of was in my room. My door was cracked and the girls were in the living room. And my oldest saw me kind of crying behind my computer screen. And so anyway, the day goes on. That night, we did this little routine. And I kiss them both and I start to walk out. And my 4-year-old says, Mom. I go, yeah. She goes, Mom, you're strong. And I was like, thank you, baby. And it was just so cool for her to be able to do something at such a young age that so many parents nowadays, or so many kids that had parents as addicts, didn't get.
Yeah, they're
And
missing.
for her to identify that so young is just such a beautiful situation, such a beautiful process. So
It's cool that you were doing that, because I was brought up, I don't ever remember any time that I ever got, I am proud of you. We didn't have a lot of I love yous in my family. And I have taken what I have learned from that. And I mean, still to this day, every time I get off the phone with my daughters or talk to them on a text or whatever it may be, it's always end with I love you. My grandkids, all the time. I mean, for Father's Day once, it was before my grandson was old enough, but they wrote things down about their papa, and both of them put, what is one of the things that your papa does the most of it, and both of them put down, hug us and tell him how much he loves us. And that to me was just like, oh my gosh. So with what you're doing, putting that in that child, they're going to grow up with that, and hopefully
building a foundation.
You're building that strong foundation. And that's what I think society has missed a lot. And it's not against the parents, and so I hope people don't think that. It's just life takes us over.
Absolutely.
And I spent so many years missing a lot of my daughter's events because the only thing I cared about was my career, and all I did was work. I was a workaholic. That's all I did. And now I go back here, it's coming up on 12 years that I don't have that job anymore. I spent 24 years there. Where did it get me?
Right.
Look at what I missed.
Right.
Because I was so damn and determined that I was going to work my ass off, work myself up in corporate, get up on the chain, be in management, which I did all that. I have nothing to show for it. I lost a lot of my kids' events, and that's why I work really, really hard to go to every single one of my grandkids' events. I mean, my daughter called me up about a month ago and got me crying. She goes, Dad, I just want to let you know how much Rick and I appreciate you with you showing up for these kids and how much it means to them. And I'm like, yeah, thanks a lot. You're making Dad cry. I mean, so it's great that you recognized all the stuff that you went through and you're building that. Now here's your kid, your daughter.
Well, and I think about it too, is,
Helping you.
as far as like the tools, it's like whatever tools that I felt like would have helped me as a child, I think
Yeah.
of that all the time. What can I do? What can I teach them now to allow them to have the tools necessary for when they do face these situations in the future? So,
Well, I want to remind you too that at one point you said you thought you wouldn't be able to have kids, or you wouldn't go down that road, or you might not see
I
them.
know I messed up accidentally. We weren't supposed to get to that yet.
Hey, it's all good.
No, but I think I wanted to say, look how far you've come, and that's what's so neat about the healing process, is that you do get to have those things. You are important. You are, everything that you need to be. And you're also reaching out and helping other people. And that's what really all this is about.
Absolutely.
In relation to you, I used to think, gosh, if I can just live to see, while I was going through my abuse and things like that I went throughout my life, right? If I can just live to see my kids get married or have a grandchild, So,
Yeah.
sorry, that touched
See,
my
see, we all have those
Gotcha.
little touching moments.
I didn't know that. I mean, there were times I thought I wouldn't be able, and now I have 6 beautiful grandkids. I've got a guy in my life, and he's got a family too that I love, and another grandchild, and it's such a blessing to watch things transpire.
Absolutely.
Over the time and over the years when you take the time to be accountable like you've done. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I think
I'm proud of you.
this is the gift that we get out of our troubles, and our strengths.
Absolutely.
So do you want to share something again?
Oh yeah, no, hold on,
Okay,
I'm not done.
okay.
We ain't going no
Good.
commercial yet.
Okay.
Oh no,
Did you hear that, Brad?
we're
All
almost
right.
to the hook right here. Are you ready?
Okay, let's
So
hear it.
to bring it back to where we're at here, I'm standing there, 19 years old, in the courtroom, and this judge looks at me and he goes, Mel, I've given you I ended up going into drug court. The drug court treatment failed. Inpatient treatment failed. Outpatient treatment failed. I just couldn't do it. And it was that defiance for me. I was like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I raised myself, and I'm going to take the credit for whether I fail and whether I succeed. Like, I'm not going to do what you're going to tell me to do, because
Right.
then later on when I recover, I'm doing great. You're going to be like, oh, I'm the reason that you're doing great, And I was like, no. So, I just failed them all. And I stood there, and the judge goes, Mel, I've given you every reason, every opportunity, every chance to save yourself from the grave you dug. And he goes, you clearly don't want to live. The therapists, they give you a file before court, and I had been reading them, and there were some comments from therapists that, were hard to read, that were basically validating all the feelings in my head growing up. She's a lost cause, basically. She's not going to recover, and the best option for her is to be made an example for the upcoming children her age, that despite your age, you're still going to have to pay those consequences. And so as he's literally about to sentence me to years in prison, the court doors fling open. And that is where we'll go to commercial.
I like that. Yeah, I love this hook right here, because I know what's coming up. I think Lori does too. But so, guys, we're going to take another quick break. You have to stick around and listen to this next part, because this is a very, very touching part, and I don't want to go in too much. If I get talking too much, I'll start sharing.
Yeah, don't tell
Yeah.
Al.
Like word vomit.
Later,
But,
man.
yeah, word vomit. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tamara K. Anderson, and I want to share something special with you. When our son Nathan was diagnosed with autism, I felt like the life we had expected for him was ripped away, and with it, my own heart shattered as well. It's very common for families to feel anger, pain, confusion, and anxiety when a child is diagnosed. This is where my book, Normal for Me, comes into play. It shares my story of learning to replace my pain with acceptance, peace, joy, and hope. Normal for Me has helped change many lives, and I'd like to give this book to as many families as possible. We've put together something I think is really special. My friends and listeners can order copies of my book at a significantly discounted price, and we will send them to families who have just had a child diagnosed with autism or another special needs diagnosis. We will put your name inside the cover so they will know someone out there loves them and wants to help. I will also sign each copy. You can order as little as one or as many as hundreds to be shared with others. So go to my website, tamarakanderson.com, and visit the store section for more information and to place your order. You can bless the lives of many families by sending them hope, love, and peace. Check it out today at tamarakanderson.com and help me spread hope to the world.
Welcome to the Resilience Talk Network. My name is Jay Walter, and I'm the host of Rebuilding. Heard every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. You can listen in and learn how to face your fears, overcome obstacles, and make dreams a reality. So listen every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Resilience Talk Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the other side of addiction. Our guest speaker today is Malory Ruesch. We are so grateful to have her. We'd also take this time to thank a couple of our other sponsors. We've got Lift Up Concrete out of... Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, Lift Up Concrete. We're talking about questioning things. So Lift Up Concrete out of Kaysville. Gregory and his crew, these guys are awesome. So if you have sunken or settled concrete, reach out to Lift Up Concrete because it's a third to a fifth of the cost of tear out and replace. That I know because I used to sell concrete lifting. So also our newest sponsor, Surf Pro, West Jordan. But we want to thank all the Surf Pros. I mean, from Ogden all the way down to St. George. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting us, for your sponsorship. None of this would be going on without any of you. And then I also got to make sure we put our plug in for Resilience Talk Network.
That's right.
So Brad, again, none of this would be happening without our sponsors and with Brad opening up his love and his kindness and allowing us to come in his studio and put on these awesome podcasts and have phenomenal guests.
Yeah.
So right before our break, Malory kind of did a soap opera. You know, at the end of a soap opera, they make sure you're going to come back next week.
It really did.
All right. I know where this is going, but our audience doesn't. So you've got to. I'm getting goosebumps.
I gotta ask you a
so.
question. When you and your wife watch a movie, right? Like when you sit down and have your time together and you watch a movie, do you spoil the ending of movies she hasn't seen yet?
No.
Okay, good. Because I do that all the time. Sorry, Wes.
Sorry, Wes. I'm just going to tell you how it ends.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm standing in the courtroom, 19 years old. The judge is about to smash his hammer down and sentence me to prison. And the court doors behind me swing open. And in walks a man that I've never seen before. And he goes, "Excuse me, Your Honor, I need to speak with you in prosecution for a minute." And the judge goes, "Chuck, what is the reason for this?" And he goes, "Please just let me speak with you in prosecution for a few moments." So Chuck goes up to the stand and they talk for, once again, what seemed like forever.
An eternity.
Oh, my heart was racing. I used in the parking lot of the courthouse because I'm like, well, what's one more use gonna hurt? Like I'm going to prison. My life, it can't get any worse. So I could feel the drugs just going through my veins, and all of a sudden, Chuck walks out of the room, and the judge looks at me and goes, "Malory, I don't know what Chuck thinks that he can do that we haven't already tried or given you the chance to do, but I trust him. So I'm willing to give him the opportunity to try. I'm sentencing you to a 3-year private probation, 0 tolerance with him and his firm. And you're dismissed." And released me. In that moment, I was like, what just happened? I should be going to prison right now. And so I walk out, and standing there with his arm on the railing is Chuck, and I go up to him and he goes, "Well, welcome to OMS probation. I'll see you in 2 weeks to drug test." And I was like, what? Like, you're just gonna let me go? Like, clearly I'm high. Clearly I'm a mess. Like, you're just gonna trust me out there on my own? And he's like, "Yeah, why not? Like, you're on a 0 tolerance. Like, if you mess up, you're the one that sent yourself." I was like, okay, wow, finally someone giving me a little credit. Someone letting me make my own decisions. I was like, okay, well, within the first 48 hours, I did what an addict does. The drugs were in control, and I ended up stealing my mom's car. Went down to Vegas with some friends. robbed a hooker and stole from multiple drug dealers. Went down the street in my mom's car going 100 and bashed the right side rear view mirror off, and ended up shooting heroin and meth for the first time together at the same time. I was too messed up to end up driving home because we went overnight and ended up coming back. It was about 3 p.m. in the afternoon as we were getting back into St. George, and all of a sudden my phone rings and I answer it, and it's Chuck. And Chuck goes, "Hey Mel, how are you?" And I'm like, "Good, how are you?" I'm doing great. He's like, "I need you to come in and drug test." Instantly, I knew my life was over. I was like, great. So I ended up going to the office, but there's always that thought in the addict's mind of, I can be smarter, faster, better next time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It never ends up that way. Well, I thought I could be smarter than the system and try to fake my drug test, which didn't change the track marks up and down my arms, but he had seen those yesterday anyway. So I get to the office and he sits me down and he goes, "So, have you left the state?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "So how far did you go then?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I know you went to Vegas." And I'm sitting there like, how does he know this? So he goes, "I need you to drug test." Well, I don't know if this is too much information, but the container that had the fake pee for my drug test, am I allowed to say those details of how you do this? Okay. So basically you get like a small bottle, like from a hotel, like a shampoo bottle, fill it with pee, cover it with saran wrap, put it up you, and then when you go to the bathroom, you pop it with your finger. Okay. And it goes into the cup, right? So I thought I was genius. Well, what happened is gravity. Gravity didn't happen. That's what happened. So you can't unpop cellophane, and if it's not coming out, then what's going to happen the second you stand up? Well, that's what happened. I sat there, played dumb for like a solid 15 minutes, and they're like, "You're clearly not going to go." So I was like, oh my gosh. So I stood up and peed went down my legs, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I go into his office, and I'm sitting there in the chair, and he goes, "Malory, I'm so sad that your story ends like this." And he grabs a paper off of the fax machine and he starts filling it out. And I go, "What is that?" And he goes, "It's the report that I'm sending to the judge. You just messed up your zero tolerance and you're going to be shipped off." And I was like, all of a sudden I just started bawling. And I was like, "Please don't send that in. Please don't send that in." And he was like, he stood up, banged his hands on the desks, and he's like, "What the hell do we have to do to get you to choose to live?"
Wow.
And I sat there in silence for a minute, and he goes, "Clearly you don't want to. Like, maybe the judge was right. Maybe I was an idiot for believing that you could do this." And I just sat there and took it because, he was right. And I go, I just want to be loved. I just want to matter enough that if I went away, someone would care. So he sat down and he goes, "Mel, I care. I would care. And if I didn't, I wouldn't have come into that courtroom. I would have just let him take you away." And he goes, "What do I have to do to get you to choose to want to live?" And I go, "Please stop threatening me. I don't want to be punished into recovery. I want to be inspired into recovery. I made the choice the first time to get clean on my own. I know I can do it." And he goes, "Okay." He grabbed the paper and he tore it in half. And he goes, "This never happened." He goes, "For the next 6 months, I want you to call me every single night. If I answer, we'll have a 1-minute conversation about how your day went. This is going to tell me 2 things. 1, I'm going to be able to hear your voice and see if you're high. 2, I'm going to know you're alive." And I go, "Okay." He goes, "If I don't answer, you are required to leave me a 1-minute, no less, no more. I mean, more if you want, but no less than a 1-minute voicemail." I said, "Okay." That 6 months, changed everything for me, because he was fulfilling. I was able to build this relationship with this man that I had been longing for my whole life. And that was a dad. And someone that cared, someone that loved me. And on the days that he would answer, we would laugh and talk and joke, and he was the funniest. Is so funny, and constantly telling jokes. And one day he goes, Mal, you need to do something. You should start considering something to keep your mind busy, And he goes, have you ever thought of going to school? And I was like, yeah, I love school. Maybe I could go into the healthcare industry and try to change this whole addiction situation and all the opioid problems that we're facing and help other addicts in that way. So over this 6-month period, Chuck and I built this great, amazing relationship. In the midst of this 6 months, I was living at the homeless shelter in the beginning because I had no family contact. Obviously, addiction runs in my family. And I had randomly, throughout the parties in the early years of my addiction, I had ran into a guy named Wes at multiple parties, but he was a total introvert. Like, he was the one that would sit in the corner of the room, and you'd never really notice, Anyway, met him at a couple parties, and it was randomly, like every 2 years, we just ended up meeting up. Well, he came to the homeless shelter and goes, Malory, I have a room for you, and I don't want you to be here anymore. I want you to come live with me. And I said, okay. So he ended up coming to the homeless shelter, helping me get all my stuff, moving me into her spare bedroom. And Chuck had to come inspect it. He goes, okay, listen, Wes, I'm going to tell you this once and only one time. She is unavailable. You do not you do not date. You do not even think about anything more than being friends. Do you understand me? And he goes, he goes, yes.
The
and
father figure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved it. I was like, yeah, you tell him, Dad. Not really. I didn't say that, but that's how it felt. I was like, yeah, get him. And he goes, she's unavailable. She's super codependent. She needs to learn how to live life on her own and love herself enough to not need a man. And I think the cause of my dad not being there caused a lot of codependency issues for me. So, living with him, not having that no family contact, Wes ended up going to all my support groups, got to hear all my stories, everything I had done, and truly we built this love as friends, a friendship that was unbreakable. I mean, we'd stay up for hours at night and just talking, knowing we were off limits, right? But little did we know that we were building the foundation for what was going to become the most magical relationship that I was going to have. And anyway, so finally, I pick up my phone, I go to call Chuck for my check-in for the night, and ring, he answers, and I go, hey, Chuck. He goes, hey, Mel. And I was like, wow, you don't sound too excited to see me. What the heck? Or hear me. And he goes, your 6 months check-ins ended yesterday. You don't have to call me anymore. And in that moment, a lot of people would be excited, but for me, I was sad. Like, that was everything I looked forward to every day, was talking to him. Everything that happened good in my day, he would celebrate with me and tell me how proud he was of me and encourage me to do more. And I was like, no, I don't want these to end. And he goes, Mel, you have to learn to love yourself and reassure yourself and validate yourself. You don't need me. And so what did I do? I ended up enrolling in school and graduating with my bachelor's of healthcare. Well, okay, actually, sorry, rewind. I ended up getting in school, and from that point, I started living. I got a job that I still have today. I've been there 7.5 years, and I manage, and I love it. I meet people and addicts that I get to inspire every single day, and I have built, a friendship with this man who's my best friend, And I ended up getting this tattoo. I'm just going to show the camera over there.
Yeah.
So you did
It's like
ask
a
earlier.
Third eye, right?
I know. Oh my
That is
gosh.
so cool.
And tables at my job, some are like, oh, the all-seeing eye. And I was like, listen, you should be careful about saying stuff like that because you never know.
you
Like,
should put an ear on the other
I
side.
know. For Halloween, I was like, I could hold this on my
I
forehead.
love it.
Anyway, so the reason for the eye, because you did ask earlier,
Yes, I did.
Al,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the eye is an EKG, and the eye is a metaphor for I choose to live. Just like Chuck said that day in his office, what do I have to do to get you to choose to live? Finally, I had made that decision that I choose to live. And instead of getting the words, I created a picture.
Wow.
So, life was great. And I found out that while I was going to school for my healthcare degree, I found out that there was a background check at the end of it. So the first thing I do, call Chuck. I'm like, listen, Chuck, there's a background check at the end of this, and I'm not going to be able to get through my degree. Like, what's the point of going through schooling if I'm not going to get it? And he's like, Mal, how bad do you want it? And I was like, really bad. And he's like, well, I think you should follow your heart. I was like, okay, like, I don't get it. You're supposed to be guiding me in a good direction, and you're telling me to do something, like, setting me up for failure here. Like, anyway, so I ended up continuing on with that degree. One night, Wes and I were sitting in the living room, and there was a knock on the door. It was about 9 p.m. And I go to open the door, and there's an envelope on my doorstep. And I pick up the envelope, and I open it. And it was a full clearance 402 reduction of my entire record.
Wow.
All my felonies
That's
and
really
misdemeanors taken off upon my graduation of probation, obviously. So I graduated, and I was free and clear of all of my bad choices and all my charges. And Wes ends up going to Chuck and asks if he can propose. And he did. And I'm so grateful. I finally had everything I could have ever wanted in life. And finally, one day I'm sitting there and I go, Wes, I don't have anyone to walk me down the aisle, right? Like, every girl dreams of her wedding day and her dad walking her down the aisle and that father-daughter dance. And those were all things that I just knew I was going to have to face again. All these feelings that were getting regurgitated of pain, I was going to have to face on the day that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. So Wes looks at me and he knows me so well because we built that friendship. But he looks at me and he goes, why wouldn't you ask Chuck? And I was like, you're right. You were right. So I ended up calling him. No answer. Waited a couple days, called him, no answer. I didn't want to leave a voicemail because I was like, this is important information. I want to be able to talk to him about this. And 3 months goes by, and I haven't received a call back. And I kind of started thinking, probably because I graduated probation, it's a conflict of interest. He has to be professional. He can't have that same relationship. I get it. So I didn't really think much of it. And the day before my wedding, we were packing to get all this stuff to New Harmony, and I was a mess. I was in my pajamas. My hair was up crazy. I was panicked, and my phone rings, and it was a number I didn't recognize. I ended up picking up the phone, and it was one of Chuck's friends that I had met a couple times throughout my probation. And he called me, and he goes, Mal, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but Chuck was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 3 months ago. And they just put him on hospice. And he asked me to call you because he wants to see you. And I go, okay, so I drop everything I'm doing, drop my phone in the process, get in my car, and my husband's like, Mal, where are you going? Like, they're packing the truck, and I'm like, I'll be right back. And I just drove as fast as I could to his house. I pull up in the front of the house, and I get to the door, and I knock on the door, and the door opens, and one of his family members opens it, and his entire family was in the house. But it was the most silent room I had ever entered in my whole life. I ended up walking in. His wife grabs my hand and takes me to his bedroom. And as the door opens, I see him laying there, being made comfortable by the thing that he spent his whole life, dedicated his whole life fighting. And, like, obviously I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak. All my emotions just started pouring out, and I sit there next to him. And his wife, you know, being in the industry he was in, his wife couldn't really know any of the details of the situation. So this was kind of the first time she was like, okay, of all the people, like, he hasn't wanted anyone to come see him, but he specifically asked for you. So this was kind of her first time being able to see this relationship. And I put my hand on his hand, and he goes, Mel, I'm so sorry I haven't been answering your calls. And me making a joke out of everything, I was like, yeah, I was calling because I wanted to ask you to walk me down the aisle, dummy. And his wife kind of chuckled, and he goes, well, I'm sorry, I'm obviously not going to be able to do that, but I want you to know that I'm going to be there. And he goes, obviously just kept crying, and he goes, I needed to see you because I needed to tell you something. If this is the last time I ever get to see you, I need you to know how much I love you, how much I care about you, and I want you to know that you were never a lost cause. And I'm so thankful that I barged into that courtroom that day. And he goes, but I need you to do something for me. And I go, okay. He goes, I need you to tell Wes that I will come after him if he messes up. But I want you to go tomorrow. And I want you to have the best day of your life because you deserve it. But I need you to make me a promise. And I go, what is that? He goes, I need you to promise me that you're going to tell your story. I need you to continue saving people that everyone else thinks are lost causes. And all I could say was, I promise. When that moment, I didn't realize the pressure of the promise that I was making. And I stood up knowing that this was going to be the very last time I was ever going to get to see him. I gave him a big hug, and I turned around and I walked out, and I got in my car and started driving home. And the sun was setting, and Chuck used to tell me that some of the best therapy is to watch the sunset because it allows you to say goodbye to the sorrows of that day. But I knew that my sorrows of that day were going to continue on long after that sun had set. So I went from the worst day of my life to the best day of my life in 24 hours. And my grandpa ended up walking me down the aisle, and it was beautiful. It was everything I could have asked for. And then my husband and I, for our honeymoon, was going on a cruise. And we get on the ship 3 days later. And as the ship is leaving the dock, my phone rings. And I knew the number because it was the one I didn't recognize before. And I answered, and he goes, I'm sorry, Mel, but Chuck is gone. It was, 9 months. I ended up finding out I was pregnant 2 days later. Well, 2 days later, hold on. I've ended up finding out I was pregnant, like, I got pregnant a couple days after that. And I ended up having my baby, and my husband Wes always used to say, that was Chuck's gift, for sure. Because he knew that being a mom was so important to me.
Yeah.
And I ended up graduating with my degree, and the first thing I did was took it to his gravesite and thanked him for everything that he had done for me, and I knew that, you know, wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. Well, 2 years goes by. I'm just enjoying life, and I realize I don't know how I'm going to fulfill this promise. I mean, I help people that come into my job, and, you know, I've talked and I've spoke with people individually, but I didn't feel like my promise was being fully fulfilled. And one day I just grabbed my laptop and I started writing as fast as I could. I started typing everything that came to mind, every lesson he had ever given me in my probation time, every quote he had gave me, every statistic, every inspiration that stuck in my mind when I thought of him. And all of a sudden, there it was in front of me, my promise. And I thought, you know what, I told my husband, I go, if I could just have a few hours with every single person on this planet, I promise you that I could love them enough until they could love themselves. Just like Chuck did for me. He loved me until I was strong enough to love myself. And if I could do that with others, then I could make a difference. And Wes goes, well, what better way can you get in front of people than writing everything that you would tell someone that was in front of you in a book? Because I can't clone you, but I sure as hell can copy a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that is how the journey began, and that is where we're at. So the book is called The Way in 90 Days. And I reached out to Chuck's wife. We keep in contact. She's amazing. And I asked her, because I had so many quotes from him within my book, you know, basically it is the foundation on which he helped me build my life. And I asked her if I could do a dedication. And she said, yeah, absolutely. So, do we have that picture?
Oh, absolutely.
This
Yeah.
is not something that is published yet, but it will be the opening page of my book, and I would like to share it for all of you listening.
Please do. There you be.
And just know that you guys are the very first people to hear this, because this is not out yet.
Well, this is an honor then to have this.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Grab some tissues
more
here.
tissues.
I tried practicing this beforehand, and
Wow, I got tears on it, or tears in my eyes when I was reading it when you sent it to me earlier, because it says a lot.
it does.
Yes.
It does. It says, Chuck Marshall, no one could ever comprehend what you were to me. I remember your introduction at the beginning of my probation. I was scared as hell. You had a stern facade that appeared unbreakable. The ones that you were closest to knew better, and now I know better. You taught me life was worth living, then showed me how to create a life I loved. You taught me to stand tall and to build my self-esteem. In doing so, I found a love for myself and a will to live. You encouraged my dreams despite how many people told me I could not reach them. And you taught me how to be independent, how to set boundaries, and how to never be ashamed of my past. Thank you for being the father that I never had. You helped heal a void in me that changed my life forever, just by being you. Expressing my gratitude does not feel like enough to repay you for your love and support. Without you, my life would have been very different. I was facing death, institutions, and prison, yet you showed me a different way. Of all the people in the world I could have had as a probation officer, I thank God every day it was you. You lived a life of purpose and drive. You were always rooting for the underdog with compassion and support. As a child, we all hope to grow up to be like our hero. I hope that I can make a portion of the impact that you did. You are incredibly missed, but God needed you more. I owe you my life, and I am forever grateful. Thank you.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Very,
I sent
very
that to his
beautiful.
wife today, too, so.
You know, a lot of what you just said is how I feel about my stepfather. You know, he's been in my life for over 40 years, and he was the really only stable male figure I had, so I was able to have that in him.
Right.
So without him, my life would have been very different as well. So I really appreciate what you said about that, because
Of course.
he saved me a million times. So.
Right. And I really, it's such a beautiful situation for me, because my husband is one of the most amazing fathers, and he cherishes every second with our babies, and there's nothing that I could have wanted more in a man. You know, like the checklist that us women create, mine would have been a father that is there 100%, and that my kids love them. And he's more than I could have ever asked for in a father for my children. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so thankful that Chuck had a part in making him earn that and proving that he could be that for me. So it's been awesome.
It's
been
almost
great.
like Chuck knew.
I know.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm going back and just replaying a lot of the stuff that you just shared with us. You know, how the cops came in and they missed this stuff and you got your hands back on it, and how it took you down another road. It's like God testing you, see where you take it. But he knew that you had the strength, and then he put more strength in your life to help you get to your next step. It just, yeah. That's why I love doing these podcasts. The stories that we have
That
and
come
the guests
out.
that we have. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just, I mean, I got tears in my eyes just thinking about it. It's just, there's so much out there, you know, and I love what you shared, that there's nothing wrong with any of us. We just think that there is.
Absolutely.
You know, we all think we're broken. My wife shared on the show when Brad and I was here talking about rehabs and stuff, and she said one of her family members came to visit her once, and they didn't really come to check on her. They just kind of wanted to come and see what the place was like. And one of her family members said, "So have they fixed you yet?" And my wife got so upset. She goes, "I ain't broken."
Exactly.
You
And
know,
that's
so-
like with everything. I mean, people, you know, when I was going to those treatment centers and rehabs, it was like they were just constantly trying to brainwash me into saying or doing something, and then I was just going through the motions. I was, yep, I'm recovered. Nope, I don't want to use. When really that wasn't my reality, you know?
Yeah.
I wasn't getting the ability to heal because I was so worried about following rules. And finally, Chuck was able to take the rule situation out of it and say, you know what? You make your choices based on whether you want to live. Your choices will be the deciding factor, so that you can't blame anyone but yourself.
Yeah.
And once I was able to be given that freedom and that trust, like, that's when the healing began for me. That's when I chose to live. And that is why this book, I sit down every night, Al, and I read this book and I cry every time. Like, I have put my whole heart and my whole soul and every piece that built my recovery and who I am today that Chuck created is in this book. I mean, to the parents of or to the child of an addict, to the parents of an addict. I mean, any aspect in recovery where people need to understand this reality of the situation, the possibilities of what could be, and what their placement in that can be and could be, without jeopardizing, ruining, or making things worse.
Yeah.
Because that's what was happening with me in these rehabs and with these other, you know, officers and trackers, is they were just making me defensive, and I was just fighting the process instead of being able to focus on the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is healing. And I think that that's what's being forgotten, and that's why addicts keep dying, is stop with the rules and start with the healing. And in this 90-day program, it's going to change lives. It's going to be big. I know it's going to be big. My heart feels it every time I read it. And I'm so thankful that, like, I got to be a part of this with you guys, because, like, again, I don't know where this idea, well, I do know where this idea came from,
Yeah.
because it just popped out, you know. But I know that Chuck has my hand every single time I go to write. And I can just feel filling the pages, and it just gets better and better. Like, when I think I've outdone myself, I continue to outdo myself. So I'm really excited for it to be a part, for any of those listening, that are interested in being able to get this book. I'm not quite done. I have been avoiding giving the deadline out, because I know things happen, and I don't believe in coincidence. I think it's going to be done when everything that's meant to be in that book is in that book.
Amen.
And I've had so many great situations, like just being up here for this podcast. Like, I could have done that Zoom call, but I was like, no, I need to be there in person. And at our hotel last night, I walk out to get some fresh air, and a guy walks out with a cup of alcohol. And he sits down, and I didn't know it was alcohol at the time, but I could tell by how he was walking. And he sits down, and he goes, hi, what's your name? And I go, I'm Malory. And he goes, I'm Alex. And I go, hi, Alex. And he goes, what do you do for a living? I go speak to high schools about addiction and recovery. And he goes, well, I'm an alcoholic, and I don't know how to get out of it. And, like, that alone was like, and I go, yeah, I don't believe in coincidence. And he goes, yeah, this is a total coincidence. I was like, listen, give me your phone. Here's my website. We're going to get you this book. He goes, good, I want to buy 3 of them. Like, good. Because if you want to do it 3 times, let's do it. But my website, you are able to reserve your copy. My website is rueschrecovery.com. You are able to reserve your book, but you're also able to get the first introduction chapter for free, explaining, more detail of the book and the situation and why it's come to be. I have also just recently published it's called My Journey Journal. And I think one thing that Chuck taught me was your story begins when you start to write it down. And everyone has a story. This is why you do a podcast. And the most important thing that anyone out there, if you're wondering how your story can help other people, the very first step is to get this journey journal, because everyone has a journey, everyone has a story, and write it down. It will change lives. It will save lives. And it also gives you the ability to look back on things you've been through and be able to see the progress and the stepping stones and the things that happen not coincidentally to create the person you're meant to be, so that you can fulfill a purpose that you're meant to fulfill. So that you are able to order that on my website, My Journey Journal. It is on Amazon. It's only $10. It's great. It's beautiful. So
I love
Fantastic.
it. I love it. Thank you for sharing your story.
And one more thing, Al. I do have a present for you.
For me?
I do have a present. Dun,
Serious?
dun, dun. Adding hooks.
Uh-oh. What is this? It's good I can see her in the camera, so I know she's not going to sneak up backside and hit me in the head.
I have brought in a journal for you, Al. I'm sorry I didn't know you were going to be here, but I'm going to get you one.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to get you a beautiful one.
You're just fine, hon.
But Al, I did sign it for you.
Oh my gosh.
So here is the journal for you guys to see. I don't know if you can see that, but. And it says, to Al, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Good luck on your journey, and I know you are going to change many lives. Never give up. Love, Malory Ruesch with Ruesch.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
And I have one
See, here
more.
Yeah, girls are making me cry. Oh my
we're
goodness.
not done.
Oh, we're not.
I also have another journal because it's important. And it's to your wife. And it says, Janan. Is it Janan?
Yes, it is.
It says, Janan, you are beautiful. You are inspiring. You are a light that this world is lucky to have. This world needs you. Love, Mal. P.S. Happy 6 months. That's huge.
It isn't. She just hit 6 months yesterday. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so
No, I
much.
can go over these, but
Oh my gosh. Wow, what a surprise.
start writing that stuff down, Al. You're gonna be big.
Definitely. Well, you know, Lori has shared on this show many times the reason why we both wanted to do this is to share our journeys and to get it out there to help a lot of people, because Lori has said over and over on this show, everybody is worth it. This is just a part of your journey. She's proof of it because she has gone through a lot in her life and has seen the end of the tunnel. You're proof of it. I'm seeing it happen right in front of me with my wife, watching her journey, and other guests that we've had watching their journey, and even someone like myself who's been on the other side. We go through this journey with the one that we love. Yes, there are some that their journey's a little different, and there's probably more abuse and stuff, and they have to get out. And what's kept me with my wife, I don't know, because it's been 7 years worth of living hell, but something has kept me here. And we shared on our podcast a few weeks ago, if Lori and myself can help one person, all the pain and all the struggles that we've gone through has been worth every single bit of it. And I think that's the reason why we were meant to meet, because Lori is the one that reached out to me from Facebook. And I mean, as soon as we met, we hit it off, and we both had the same dreams that we wanted to speak and share our stories, that we wanted to start this podcast. And once we made up our mind, God has blessed us with people like Brad to put here for us.
I like to say something too. It inspired me both before my mother and grandmother died. They asked me, you should write a book and keep singing, and you should call it Born in High Heels, you know. And I've sat down a million times thinking that's what I should do, but you just inspired me to do it a little more.
Absolutely.
Because when they said it, it was just on their dying bed, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it just kind of touched me and just kind of sent a message to my heart from them. So,
And when you're ready,
it's like,
I have some beautiful people that I can connect you with to make sure that that book gets there for you.
thank you.
100%.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so
Her
much.
book will be awesome. Because I read a lot of her stuff she puts on Facebook. She has a way with words. It's gonna be awesome. So.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much.
I
It's
just
been
want you guys
really
both
sweet.
to know I'm so grateful to be here and just to see like everything that you guys are doing. Like, don't ever think that it's gonna go unnoticed or that it's not changing people's lives, because you will be stunned at how many people. I mean, it's just like, you know, connecting with me and Al. Like, this is the first time we've ever met in person.
Yes.
And so, and it was like, he just popped up in my messenger, hey, you want to have we got to have a talk here. And I was like, okay. And look where we are. It's all about just setting goals and believing that anything is possible.
Yeah.
Anything you set your mind to is possible. And it's people like us that have stories like this that drive us to achieve greatness. And I know you guys are both on such a great path here. And I can't wait to see it explode.
I can't wait to see all of ours explode. Lori actually just called me yesterday, and she just landed a gig to speak at a hospital,
Yes!
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
which is exciting.
That
Yeah.
is awesome. That's great.
So
It's the best feeling in the world.
yeah, there's the recovering alcoholics and addicts and some of their family members. So
That's
that'll
awesome.
be nice.
And it's a
Yeah.
place that's really helped you as well,
Mhm.
right? From
Yeah,
what you shared
exactly.
with-
From the ACT in Ogden,
Yeah.
at the Ogden Regional Medical Center. So
That is so
Yeah.
awesome.
things happen for reasons, you know.
No
and it's
coincidences.
just-
None.
Yeah. So
You're meant to be there.
Mal, thank you so much for coming
Yes.
and being with us today. We even have guests. Mike, thank you so much. Jen, thank you so much. I can say Jen, right? That works. Okay, good. Yeah, thank you all for joining us today, being here, and thank you everybody. This is a great show. every time when I get home, my wife's like, how did the show go? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this one was so amazing. And she goes, you say that every week. And it's like, because it's true. They are so flippin' amazing. And it seems like, and I don't think Lori would disagree, but it seems like they just keep getting better and better and better. So thank you guys for coming up and joining us here in the studio today. Thank you for your story. We are so, so grateful for you to come up, and thank you so much for these journals. I mean, I know my wife's gonna love hers.
And I want
that's
you to
for
have
sure.
one too.
Oh, you're
so
sweet.
I will get you.
Thank you
We're
very
gonna
much.
get you one sent real quick, and I'm gonna sign it. Can't have it till I
Very
sign
sweet.
it.
Thank you.
Love it. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for next week. We've got another great guest. Lori, is there something you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, as always, there's always light after the darkness. And don't forget that. And you're worth it.
You are, yeah, we're all worth it. So, yeah, please stay tuned. And, guys, one thing we forget to share at the end of everything, if you guys have questions, please email us. I'll share my email. Lori, I want you to please share your email. So, email at mralrichards@gmail.com. Lori?
Mine is Lori, Lorie, Chevy Girl, at AOL.com.
I knew that's why I liked her, because she likes Chevys. I knew it.
It's the Corvettes.
It's the Corvettes,
So,
yeah. So, guys, thank you, and we're going to end with this. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything.